Reading from the book of Nehemiah, chapter 6, verses 1 to 9. Now when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem the Arab and the rest of our enemies heard that I had built the wall, and there was no breach left in it, although up to that time I had not set up the doors in the gates, Sanballat and Geshem sent to me, saying, Come, and let us meet together at Hakkephirim in the plain of Ono. But they intended to do me harm, and I sent messengers to them, saying, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? And they sent to me 4 times in this way, and I answered them in the same manner. In the same way, Sanballat for the 5th time sent his servant to me with an open letter in his hand. In it was written, It is reported among the nations, and Geshem also says it, that you and the Jews intended to rebel. That is why you are building the wall, and according to these reports you wish to become their king. And you have also set up prophets to proclaim concerning you in Jerusalem. There is a king in Judah. And now the king will hear of these reports. So now come and let us take counsel together. Then I sent to him, saying, No such thing as you say have been done, for you're inventing them out of your mind. For they all wanted to frighten us, thinking their hands will drop from the work and it will not be done. But now, O God, strengthen my hands. A wise old farmer could predict storms before they came. When others planted recklessly, he waited for the right season. His crops always thrived, while others suffered losses. Someone asked, How do you always know what to do? He replied, I have learned to read the signs. This story highlights the need for discernment and discretion, qualities that Nehemiah exemplified when faced with the cunning schemes of his enemies in Nehemiah chapter 6. Nehemiah was nearing the completion of the wall around Jerusalem, and his enemies devised a seemingly innocent plan. They invited him to meet with them on the plain of Ono. To an undiscerning mind, this may have seemed like an opportunity for peace talks, perhaps even reconciliation. But Nehemiah, with keen spiritual discernment, recognized their true intent. But they intended to do me harm, he noted. He responded with a simple yet profound statement. I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? 4 times they sent this invitation, and 4 times Nehemiah gave the same reply. His focus was unwavering, and his discernment kept him from falling into their trap. Discernment is the ability to judge matters according to God's perspective, not based on outward appearances. This principle is echoed in 1 Samuel 16:7, where God reminds Samuel that man looks at outward appearances, but the Lord looks at the heart. How often do we find ourselves deceived by friendly gestures that mask hidden agendas? Nehemiah's wisdom reminds us that not all invitations are meant for our good. When David had doubts about the people of Keilah, he inquired of the Lord, and God revealed their true intentions. Likewise, we must seek God's guidance in every situation, lest we fall into the snares of deception. Frustrated by Nehemiah's refusal, his enemies turned to lies and slander. They spread rumors that Nehemiah was plotting rebellion against the king, hoping to instill fear and force him into submission. But Nehemiah stood firm. He did not waver or rush to defend himself. Instead, he responded with wisdom, refusing to let fear dictate his actions. To further their deceit, they hired a false prophet to intimidate. Shemaiah urged Nehemiah to take refuge in the temple, claiming his life was in danger. But Nehemiah saw through the deception. He understood that seeking safety in the temple in this manner would be an act of disobedience, a trap meant to discredit him. Should such a man as I run away, he declared, I will not go in. Fear is a weapon the enemy frequently uses to paralyze God's people. Yet, Nehemiah did not give in. Instead of succumbing to fear, he turned to God in prayer, seeking strength. The result? Not only did Nehemiah remain steadfast, but his enemies themselves became afraid. We read in verse 16, and when all our enemies heard of it, all the nations around us were afraid and fell greatly in their own esteem, for they perceived that this work had been accomplished with the help of our God. The tables had turned. The very ones who sought to instill fear were now trembling, for they recognized that God's hand was upon the work. Many today live under the weight of fear. Fear of what others think, fear of slander, fear of failure. But Nehemiah's example teaches us that we must not let fear control us. People will always have opinions, but their words should not dictate our purpose. Instead of being consumed by what others say, we must remain focused on the work God has given us, trusting that He will be our defense. As Zechariah 4:6 reminds us, not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Nehemiah's ability to discern deception and remain discreet in his responses was key to his success. He did not engage in lengthy debates or seek to justify himself unnecessarily. He simply stood firm in his calling. His story serves as a powerful reminder that spiritual battles are often won in prayer before they manifest in action. Before Nehemiah even began the work, he had spent 4 months in prayer. Yet, the actual rebuilding of the walls took only 52 days. This contrast reveals a vital truth. The spiritual battle is often greater than the physical one, and there should be considerable time spent in the presence of God before embarking on the specific course. When the wall was finally completed, it was evident to all that the work was accomplished by God. This was not a triumph of human effort alone, but a testament to divine intervention. The enemies who once mocked and threatened now stood in fear, recognizing that what had been accomplished bore the mark of God. In our own lives, the call to discernment and discretion remains as relevant as ever. When we face opposition, whether through deception, slander, lies, or intimidation, we must remember Nehemiah's example. First, we must remain focused on the task God has given us, refusing to be distracted. Second, we must not allow fear to dictate our decisions. Instead, we should seek God's wisdom and respond with courage. Thirdly, we must saturate ourselves with His Word to know the divine principles that should guide us. Finally, we must rely on prayer, knowing that the true battle is won in the spiritual realm before it is seen in the physical. Paul echoes this truth in Philippians 1 verse 6. And I am sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. The God who calls us is faithful to equip us. When we are taunted by the enemy, let us, like Nehemiah, keep our calm, seek God's guidance, and trust that He will bring to completion the work He has begun in us. God bless.